You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And I know you guys were probably getting a little worried about me because I hadn't done a Buccaneers post game show. Maybe you thought I jumped off the bandwagon, or maybe you think I was on the injury report, went to on IR, but no, I just waited because I'm on just like the Saints, I'm on a short week as well. So I just wanted to wait and kind of mash these the reaction show to the Buccaneers game, and then do the injury report leading up to the Broncos, and just go over like MVPs and hot takes and scores for the Buccaneers and the Broncos game. So we're just doing a little bit of a mashup podcast for this one. But anyways, so we're getting into the Buccaneers 51-27 win over the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I've been a Saints fan for probably about 20 years now, and the whole 20 years, I really don't recall them getting blown out very often. I think they maybe back in 2016 or 2015 or something, they allowed 50 points to the Giants or something in like some crazy shootout, but maybe they had like 55 points or like 48 of their own, so it wasn't just a complete blowout. But I just don't ever remember the Saints looking so uncompetitive. And I mean, I guess you can attribute that to injuries, but still, just like the Chiefs game, and just and the prior heartbreakers, and Atlanta and Philadelphia, it's just embarrassing more than anything. But I'm still here. I haven't jumped off the bandwagon yet, or hadn't broke my leg trying to jump off of it. But we're still here, and I'm not having fun anymore. I could definitely say that I'm feeling kind of depressed. This sentence 2024, 2025 New Orleans Saints season it's not fun, and it's sad, and it's depressing. But anyways, let's get into this Bucs game, this Buck molly-whopping, cheek clapping that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put on the New Orleans Saints. So anyways, can I get a menu? And so this was a crazy game, really, mostly in the first half, just in regards to like right out of the gate. The Buccaneers are just in a blink of an eye, they're up 17-0. And honestly, I had my arms folded watching it, just being like, okay, that's fine. I just hope it's over now. But of course, the New Orleans Saints, they got to play with your heartstrings. They got to play with your heartstrings, and it just makes you sick. I'd have been fine with them getting blown out 51-0 than I was with them battling back and looking competitive, and actually taking the lead into halftime. It's just it just makes you sick. But then, of course, they just completely fall apart in the second half, and they're just don't do anything. It's like they didn't come out of the locker room or something in the second half. And Todd Bowles and the coaching staff over in Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, you hate to have to say a good thing about division rivals, but they had a masterclass plan in the second half to just constantly blitz Spencer Rattler up the middle, try to keep him in the pocket, and take away any type of rollout throws. And then they just pretty much started running it on offense on every play, because that's what let the Saints back into this game, is that they fell ass backwards into some turnovers, and the Buccaneers were just shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. But then the Saints just the Buccaneers cleaned that up and had great second time second half adjustments and just made the Saints look like a bunch of clowns and made them look like a JV team, which they are with the amount of players hurt and starters out. I think it's like 40% of their roster is on the injury report, and then 30% of it is starters. So they literally are playing a D squad. But let's go over some of these numbers here real quick. So I imagine these 19 first downs that the Saints had, most of those probably came in the first half, and then the Bucs had 31. And then the rushing yards is really what killed the Saints in this game, is that they weren't able to run the ball, and then they also couldn't stop the run. That's a recipe for a big fat L, and that's exactly what we got out of this, and a butt kicking on top of that. So the Saints had 21 carries for 81 yards and 1 touchdown, and then the Buccaneers had 35 carries for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. That remind me of the whooping that the Saints put on the Buffalo Bills back in 2017, where like literally their last like 20 plays was all like running plays at the end of the game. It felt very similar, and it wasn't fun being on the other side of that. And then this was really, I guess this was kind of attributed to Spencer Rattler being the starter, but he was, and also the offensive line just being downright terrible. But he was sacked 5 times and lost 20, and for a loss of 21 yards. And then the Saints were only able to get to Baker Mayfield once for an 8-yard loss, but the Saints they're still, even in this game, they're still the king of almost sacks. Almost sacks. Just they get a lot of pressure, but they just cannot get the quarterback on the ground. And then just total yards, the Buccaneers almost had 600 total yards. They had 594 yards of total yards, and then Saints just had 303. And then Buccaneers had a fumble, but of course the Saints were unable to recover it. They got to be the worst team. They have to be like the percentage between amount of fumbles and fumbles recovered. They have to be like the worst in the league, because they seem to force 1 or 2 fumbles every week, but are never able to recover them. And then they fumbled 3 times and just lost one, but it was a very crucial one early in the first quarter, where it didn't just freaking, at the time it felt like it flipped the game on its head and pretty much was like the nail in the coffin for the game. But not only that, because it was returned for a touchdown, it also knocked Chris Olave out of the game with his 4th concussion in like 5 years. I think he had one in like 2018, and then he's had one like every year he's been a Saint. So 2022, 2023, and 2024 he's had a concussion. So the Saints need to figure out something with Chris Olave. He needs to start wearing a guardian cap or something, or he's probably going to be bubbling at the lips at 50 years old, or just early retirement, because he's not good with contested catch, and he's not a physical or tough receiver. It's clear with the amount of concussions he gets. And there's probably people screaming out there that, there was targeting, helmet to helmet, which it seems hardly that refs even call that anymore. And you got to remember, there's no targeting in the NFL, which I was kind of fine with. But when it takes out one of my players who's already having issues with concussions, you kind of almost wish they would bring in the replay for targeting and throwing players out of the game off of one wrong hit. But that's just not a play. And then the Saints had three for one in the turnover margin in the first half. Had 3 interceptions and just had the terrible fumble injury by Chris Olave that was returned for like 55 yards by Antonio Winfield Jr., who I'd been talking about. Yeah, it was 58-yard return for a touchdown by him. He had a big game against the Saints, and Elijah Cansey had a big game against the Saints. Both two players that I was saying previously leading up to this game were every time I watch Bucs game, they were talking about how they're out, not in this game. But of course, they magically heal and play against the Saints and ball out and affect the game big time. And then penalties, it seemed like the Buccaneers got all of this. It's been a common trend for the Saints where it seems like their opponent gets all their penalties out of the way in the first half, and then the Saints get the rest of them dumped onto them in the second half. So you can't say that the Bucs didn't have a lot of penalties and weren't shooting themselves in the foot in the first half because they had 12 penalties called on them for 86 yards and the Saints just had 7 for 70-yard loss, but it seemed like all of them came like at the start of the first half, where the Saints had two opportunities to increase their lead in the third quarter, but penalties and almost turnovers. I think that was Bud Means who looked like he had almost an identical play to Chris Olave, where he caught it, turned upfield, got hit, fumbled, and then got returned. And it looked like it was starting to get returned for a big game, but thankfully that was overturned. But in hindsight, it didn't even matter really. But yeah, they just couldn't increase their lead. I was just thinking like, man, if they could just get up 10 by a 10-point lead or something, maybe we could take a breath. But no, I couldn't breathe the entire game until it just completely got out of hand. And then it was like, oh, I'm thankful the Pelicans play at 2:30. And then, of course, the Buccaneers were better on third down. They were 6 for 10 on third down conversion. The Saints were only 4 for 3. They were never in a situation. The Bucs were never in a situation where they needed to go for fourth down, but the Saints were and converted the only one that they attempted. And then time of possessions, the Bucs obviously they dominated that. Wasn't quite as bad as the Chiefs game where it was 40-20, but it was 34-26 time of possession. So still, they had almost 10 minutes, I guess 8 minutes more possession there. And then just going over like the running backs that just started going wild and just getting loose on the Saints in the second half is Sean Tucker had 14 carries for 136 yards with one touchdown, but he also had 3 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown as well. A long run of 36 yards, but also a long catch and run of 36 yards as well. And then they had Bucky Irvin also was having himself a day with 14 carries for 81 yards and one touchdown with a long of 31, and then 2 catches for 24 yards and a long of 18. And just what makes me sick seeing this Sean Tucker on here is I don't know if I've ever mentioned that I'm a player of Madden, but not console Madden, mobile Madden mobile, and they have this thing called like Team of the Week, and the 3 of the last 4 weeks, a player that the Saints played has been Team of the Week player that you can acquire through the Team of the Week program. So it's been Dallas Goedert was on there after the Saints played the Eagles. That linebacker that had the pick six, that middle linebacker that had the pick six off of Derek Carr against the Falcons was on there. And then this week, Sean Tucker is on there for having almost 200 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns on the Saints. Like, it's just playing with my heartstrings no matter what. I just can't even avoid it trying to play a video game. They're just like constantly just throwing that in my face. And I think last week after the Saints lost to the Falcons, I think I was out running some errands and going to the pharmacy at Walmart and stuff, and had to stop by the bank first. And of course, while I'm in there, I see that in one of the bank office there's a Kansas City Chief helmet up there. So it's just like that's like one of the most recent teams we lost to. Like just seeing that stuff, it's like you just can't. Seems at me as a Saints fan, I just can't escape it. And then coming back from Walmart, starting to head home, there's a truck in front of me that has a Rise Up license plate, like custom license plate, and then it says Atlanta Falcon fan on it. So it's just you can't escape it. Just can't escape it. Man, it had been so nice if this game could have just pretty much all year it's kind of been like that. Like, why can't some of these Saints games just end in the first half? Would be really nice. I think people would be screaming that Spencer Rattler is an elite rookie quarterback, or is the next C.J. Stroud, or is on the same level as Jaden Daniels if his performance would have carried over into the second half. But of course, they started getting mad pressure on him, hitting him, knocking him around, forcing him to throw some bad throws, underthrows. Had two interceptions that were underthrows to Rashid Shaheed, and just not a good combination. An underthrown ball to Rashid Shaheed, who's just not a contested catch guy, not a jump ball guy. He just doesn't seem to know how to come down with a contested catch, but also doesn't seem to know how to like draw pass interference when if he came back to the ball and basically force the defender into him, he maybe at least get the call for pass interference on there, but he just couldn't even do that. But Spencer Rattler's performance in the first half had me giddy. Yeah, I think he had what, like 160 yards and a touchdown to Bud Memes in the first half, but then they just uh, started blitzing. It seemed like almost on every down, and started beating and knocking him around, of course, forcing him to make those bad throws, and he was sacked 5 times. And uh, that was my main concern with Spencer Rattler starting now that Derek Carr is hurt. Is just I just don't want to see Spencer Rattler possibly the Saints' future, or next quarterback of the future. I just don't want to see him get hurt playing with basically a practice squad team in front of him, and not just the offensive line now. Hell, it's all the weapons too. It's his weapons: Rashid Shaheed, uh, Chris Olave, and then Taysom Hill. It's like the majority of the uh, starters from week one are just they're all hurt. They're all in the hospital. So it's very, very frustrating. All right, so we've kind of gone over that. We've kind of gone over just the basics of the team. Let's get into my MVP and hot take and the pick and score from this game. So my MVP, I would say that it hit because it my MVP, a player that hadn't done anything all year, but didn't have his worst game ever in this game against the Buccaneers after me picking him. And seems like players in previous weeks that I've seemed to have picked, and they've seemed to have been jinxed because of it. But he actually made like his first actual play of the year. Cam Jordan had an interception that was just like I said about the turnovers that they had. He just kind of fell ass back into it because it got knocked off. It bounced off of Brian Bracee's helmet and basically just fell right into Cam Jordan's arms. But after that, he just only had one tackle the entire game. So, but still, he had a turnover, and I don't think that was towards the end of the half, and they had the ball around midfield and weren't able to add any more points during any type of respectable type of 2 minute uh, 2 minute drive. So they just had opportunities before the game kind of got out of hand to add more points to increase their lead, to have more than a 3 point lead going into halftime, but also to start the halftime because they had they got the ball first to start the half, and then I think the Bucs they went like 3 and out after the Saints got backed up due to a penalty. But they had chances to at least increase their lead. That doesn't mean that they were going to be able to stay on pace and score 51 points like the Bucs did, but still, they should have been able to score some points, at least get a field goal with the quality field position that they had a couple times in the second half. So I would say my MVP hit. So that's the MVP for defense. See if there's any type of really MVP for the offense. Kind of hard to really say that there is one. I guess Bud Memes was kind of impressive before he got hit and fumbled, and that touchdown reception, toe drag swag that he had. I think that was the one of the times, like maybe that was the first time the Saints took the lead back. But he had he had 8 targets for and 5 catches for 45 yards, a touchdown, and a long of 14. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of Bud Means and Mason Tipton and Cedric Wilson, and hopefully, it seemed like one positive that kind of came, one of the few positives that kind of came out of this game. It seemed like Spencer Rattler did a little bit better job of like targeting his tight ends. I say that, but uh, the the targets weren't that high, but good yardage from it because he targeted Foster Monroe twice, and he had 2 catches for 45 yards and 54 yards and a long of 41. And then he had targeted Juwan Johnson 3 times, and he had 3 catches for 48 yards and a long of 27. And then on another play where it was an opportunity, I think, to add to go up by 10, he missed the rookie, the undrafted rookie tight end, Dalen Holker. So maybe through the buildup of this game and game plans, maybe they can work some things out and realize that targeting the tight ends and using them as safety valves is maybe a good idea in this game. And then special teams, it's real sad that that we it looks like Rashid Shaheed's season might be over, but I think I have to give it to Rashid Shaheed because he literally is like pretty much every game they've won. He's been literally the jumper cables and what's brought life into this stagnant offense. But on special teams, he had 2 returns for 56 yards with a long of 54, which was one that he returned for a touchdown, and then he had also had 1 kick return for 25 yards. But yeah, that's real sad to see a young, talented, explosive player looking like it's a good chance that they're going to be done for the season. But man, this game was just uh, gross to watch. Definitely in the second half, just how the Saints couldn't stop the run, and then even just tackling in general. One of the most maddening plays from this game was like what, just a little check down pass to a little check down pass to Chris Godwin that went for a 55-yard touchdown. Like, come on, man. Like, that's just awful. It's like 3 guys missed a tackle and went for 55 yards. So he had his biggest day. Was 13 targets for 11 catches, 125 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then we didn't really even get to see the Mike Evans, Marshawn Lattimore matchup. Really, they never got heated. There was really never any reason for Mike Evans to get upset. Besides, I guess that he wasn't having the biggest game, but he had 6 targets for 2 catches for 34 yards and a long of 22 yards. I think he was kind of nursing a hamstring during the game, but the 2 catches and most of his targets came when he was on Paulson Adebo. It seemed like he was like avoiding being matched up against Marshawn Lattimore, which I don't blame him. I don't blame him because I mean he's the Saints' best corner, but it seemed like he didn't want no smoke from Marshawn Lattimore in this game, but didn't matter anyways because he didn't have a big game, and I think there was one play where he dropped a pass that should have been like a long ball and possibly could have been a touchdown, or maybe it was just overthrown a little bit. But just the fact he was nursing the hamstring, we didn't get the full experience of Lattimore versus Mike Evans. But just going off of stats, don't know how often they were matched up. Even though the Saints got blown out, I feel like you'd still just looking at this singular matchup from this game. I would say Marshawn Lattimore won, even though they just for the sole fact that Mike Evans didn't want none of that smoke. So that's your MVPs from offense, defense, and special teams. So uh, you had Bud Means on offense, Cam Jordan on defense, and then Rashid Shaheed on special teams. Let's see. And now my hot take. My hot take was definitely didn't hit, but it looked like it had some life and some potential to it in the first half. I picked Spencer Rattler to have more yards and touchdowns than Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield had 325, and Spencer Rattler only had 243, but he had like 160 in the first half and a touchdown and no interceptions. And uh, Baker Mayfield had 3 interceptions in the first half. So it was looking like it was a potential hit. But then when they decided to just start running the play on every down and running play action and stuff, and receivers are running wide open, and check downs are going for 20 plus yard gains. That potential hot take definitely didn't hit. And then the picks and scores, another one. If it would have ended in the first half, it would have been pretty close. I picked the Bucs to win, so that I guess the Bucs winning wasn't a surprise. It was just very upsetting that the Saints looked like they had a chance to actually win this game and showed some life in the first half. So that made it really disappointing and just playing with your emotions, playing with my emotions. It's just hard to just give up on a team or just stop watching a game when it looks like, hey, looks like they can get into this. It looks like they may be able to take control of this. And this would have been such an awesome win, not just for Saints fans and Hoodats and just the team, but just for your rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler, who I thought he looked great. He looked like the quarterback of the future in the first half, but looked like the complete opposite. He looked like a rookie fifth round pick in the second half. Let's see. So, but that didn't hit. The hot take didn't hit, and that's just disappointing. Just because I've said it already. Todd Bowles, they had a good game plan and good 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 uh, good adjustments for during halftime. But the pick was right, picked the right, so wasn't overly surprised that the Buccaneers won. Just uh, that the Saints even looked like they had a chance was very annoying. But so that's enough of Buccaneers talk and all that. So we know the Buccaneers completely dominated the Saints 51-27, made the New Orleans Saints look like the little brother of the NFC South. And at the moment, they are, with the Buccaneers being 4-2 and the Falcons being 4-2, and both of them holding an early season win on them. But let's get into this Broncos game here a little bit. Let's just get into the injury report here. So we know the Broncos. It's Sean Payton's first return back to the Superdome, back to New Orleans, yada yada yada. I could really care less. Besides the fact that the Saints can get a win and maybe see him crying afterwards about some uh, bullshit call at the press presser at the end of the game. That's about the only thing that would be nice to see come from Sean Payton coming back. But that's really been highlighted. But even if he does win, which I imagine they probably will, I don't really think much of it because who cares? You're basically playing a team that almost half their team is hospitalized. So I mean, it wouldn't be a big accomplishment. That's kind of how I feel about every game and every uh, opposing fan uh, fans. When they beat the Saints and they're celebrating and all happy about it. It's like you didn't do anything. That doesn't mean your team's good for because you beat the Saints that have like what 17 players I think on their injury report. Let me count here real quick. It might take a minute. 18. They have 18 players on their injury report. But let's get into that because it's gonna take a while. Just and then the Saints have 18 on their injury report. The Broncos have 8, which is still, I mean, in a regular season with not this comical scare tactic. This is a bad joke. I don't know what you want to call it. It's that like that would be kind of a normal amount. Almost you get to like 8, almost 10, like that's a lot almost, you know. But 18 is what the Saints are dealing with. But let's get into that. So guard Cesar Ruiz still dealing with a knee injury, coming up on his 4th game. I guess there's so many spots potential return IR, that they couldn't put every player that they thought maybe back for this season on it. But man, it makes you question why a player that's looking like they're going on missing their fourth game isn't on IR. But like I said, there's not an uh, unlimited slots for potential returning IR. And then you have quarterback Derek Carr, oblique, didn't practice all week, but it's kind of odd that when he first had his injury, they kind of were saying like it was 1 to 4 weeks, and then they kind of switched it up and were saying like Spencer Rattler should be the starter for the next 3 to 4 weeks, but now he's just listed as doubtful, as if he's has like a 25% chance of playing or something. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing if we get Derek Carr back sooner than we thought, or we kind of know that Derek Carr is pretty tough and pretty common for him to play through injuries. But I don't even, with how this season's going, I just don't, it doesn't even really matter anymore. They're not making the playoffs at 2-4, and half their team is hospitalized. And then you have a center guard, Lucas Patrick, dealing with a chest. Didn't practice Monday, but was limited. Third, well, didn't practice Monday, but was limited Tuesday and Wednesday, and is listed as questionable. Then you have a linebacker, Pete Warner, dealing with a hamstring. Didn't practice all week and is out. And you could really, I know it's just one player off the defense, but the Saints could really benefit having Pete Warner back on the defense. A healthy Pete Warner. Maybe you'd have someone on the defense that could actually tackle them, but not happening this week. And then this is just a sad one. I've seen like reports about this, like early in the week, that wide receiver Rashid Shaheed is dealing with a knee injury, and it was one that was possibly concerning. And he didn't practice all week and is out. And it's funny, you see Twitter people, or sometimes what you think is fake news, like the first just reporting that he had a knee injury and didn't go through walkthroughs. Uh, it's just kind of, I guess that would have been Monday or Wednesday. Just first Monday, just didn't go through walkthroughs. You're first hearing about his knee injury and how it might be concerning, and then you see like these, what you would think like is like fake news, but someone like on Monday or Tuesday was already saying like Rashid Shaheed expected to have knee surgery is on IR, and you saw some comments saying that that's fake news, but turned out to be exactly right, because Rashid Shaheed is didn't practice all week and is out, and he's already headed to LA to have more evaluation on his knee to decide whether he needs meniscus trimming, which would be a 4 to 6 week recovery, or just a full meniscus repair, which would be 4 to 6 months. And just for your long-term health, and because it's a younger player, I don't think they should do the meniscus, the trimming of it, where you're cutting away basically cushion and shock in the knee. Like just do a full repair, and hope he comes back close to what he was before the injury, because he's just such a fast and explosive and electric player. I don't think you need to literally trim his career short by doing just a hack job trim of something that's flapping inside his knee and causing it to have some discomfort and inflammation in it. Just do the whole repair, and we'll see you next year, Rashid Shaheed, and hopefully you heal 100%, and you have no after side effects from it at all. But yeah, that's just it doesn't stop. Doesn't stop. It would be nice just to have 1 week where you had more players come back from injury than go on the injury report. So that's one of your starting wide receivers. You're not. It looks like you're not going to have your number two either, or number one, 1A, 1B, wide receiver Chris Olave. We've already went over how he got concussed and how that's kind of become a problem with Chris Olave. I think like what, almost like 4 of like the last 5 years, or 4 of the last 6 years, he's had a concussion. He didn't practice all week and is out. And I don't know. how true it is or actually how helpful wearing the Guardian cap is. But I think Chris Olave is would be a really good candidate to start wearing one. So we're not the Saints are going to be down both starting wide receivers going into this game. And then you have a tight end Taysom Hill dealing with the rib, still dealing with the broken ribs. Uh, and he's practiced. He's been like limited practice the last 2 weeks, but still doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon. Maybe after this little bye, 10 day bye, maybe he'll be back. But he was limited all week, but is still listed as doubtful. So on top of Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, and then maybe like the key to your offense, Taysom Hill is doubtful as well. So that's just I just don't know how any offense or any team can function with almost basically your three best players are out or aren't able to play. And I hate that. I hate that for a rookie quarterback being in their second start. Not only is their offensive line uh, three-fifths of their offensive line is hurt, but also uh, their three best skills position players, offensive weapons are hurt as well. Like it's just a recipe for disaster. And that was my main thing when hearing about Rashid Shaheed is I just hope he's not seriously injured, and that's what ends up coming to fruition. And that's kind of how I feel about Spencer Rattler. I almost want Derek Carr to come back to be able to deal with all these injuries and him be behind this terrible offensive line with no weapons. So Spencer Rattler doesn't get injured, which is looking with how the Saints' luck has been with injuries. It could very well happen, and I won't be surprised when it does. But it would be nice to be able to protect the possible Saints' future a little bit and not have him under fire with how bad this team is injured. And then you have a defensive end, Peyton Turner, dealing with a knee. He was limited all week and has no game status. So that's some positive, I guess. And then you have running back Alvin Kamara, hand limited all week, no game status. Defensive end Carl Granderson, neck limited Monday, and then was full Tuesday and full Wednesday, no game status. Then you have defensive tackle Nathan Shepard, groin, limited all week, no game time status. Safety JT Gray, calf, limited all week, no game time status. Cornerback Alante Taylor, shoulder, limited all week, no game time status. Wide receiver Cedric Wilson, ankle, limited Monday and Tuesday, and then full Wednesday, no game time status. Safety Tyron Matthews, who left the game last week. It seems like like the the third or fourth time in a row in games where Tyron Matthew has like left in the second half, and this was just due to like I guess a, a, a forearm bruise, a forearm contusion that left him not having, I guess, great mobility in his hand for a little for I guess for a while due to it being some nerve damage due to that. But I guess lucky that his forearm wasn't broke. But he was full all week and has no game designation. I'm sure he'll get knocked out in the first half, like he has like the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then linebacker Willie Gay Jr. hand, he was full all week and has no game time status. He had some horrible tackling attempts in that game against the Buccaneers. And then you have wide receiver Bud Memes, hand full all week, no game status. And then just to pop up and just keep on kicking dirt and mud and sand in the Saints' eyes, just to add to this already ridiculously long injury report, and a player that just came back from I think if that was a calf or a hamstring or a groin. I can't remember exactly, but defensive tackle Colin Saunders, who just came back from being out for the first 4 weeks of the year, was dealing with a back, but wasn't on the injury report Monday and Tuesday, but then of course popped up on Wednesday, just adding fuel to the fire, and then is listed as questionable for game time status. So take a couple deep breaths after literally having to stare at this horror, this picture, literally having to stare at this car wreck of an injury report. So now Let's move on to the Broncos. We'll be able to get through it about 3 times as fast because it's 3 times shorter, not even close to as long. So like the only benefiting player that's on here is that may benefit the Saints a little bit, but really is kind of null and void because the Saints' two best receivers are hurt, so it probably isn't going to really matter all that much. But the Broncos probably their best defensive player, cornerback Patrick Surtain the second, uh, dealing with a concussion, didn't practice all week and is out. Like that's about the only positive news coming off of, I guess, injuries aren't positive either way, but the only injury really that would maybe help the Saints. But of course, it doesn't help them because they don't have their two starting wide receivers. And then they have a quarterback, Jaquan McMillan, ankle limited Monday, and then full Tuesday and Wednesday, no game status. And then you have cornerback Riley Moss, hip limited Monday, and then full Tuesday and Wednesday, no game status. And then you have tackle Alex Paul Westski, ankle limited Monday and Tuesday, but then didn't practice Wednesday and is out. And then you have a cornerback Damari Mathis. Looks like the Broncos have a little bit of a beat up secondary a little bit. Their DBs are a little bit beat up, but looks for the most part they're going to play. So Damari Mathis ankle full all week, but is listed as questionable. And then inside linebacker Justin Starnad ribs full all week, no game status. And then linebacker Baron Browning. I guess this is just rest because they're not listed on here for any particular injury, but they were limited, not on the injury report on Monday, but were limited Tuesday and then full on Wednesday and listed as questionable. And then tackle Mike McGlinchey, similar thing, doesn't specify what his injury is, but he wasn't on the injury report on Monday and then was limited Tuesday and full Wednesday and listed as questionable. So I imagine that's just rest, I guess, not injury related. So it's just not even comparable, the two injury reports. Like the Saints is just disgusting. Makes me ill, makes me depressed, and I've just never seen anything like that. Just in regards to how bad it is, and I was talking earlier how I really, since being a Saints fan for like 20 years, I've never really recall them getting blown out very often. But I do recall them being injured pretty often. The last 5 years, it always seems like they're at least a little bit more injured than the majority of the teams, the average amount of teams that they play on average. But this just takes it to another level. Like this is like twice as bad as any of those previous years with the amount of players on the injury report, and not just on the injury report, players that are just going to IR as well. You got like the players that maybe are candidates for returning, like Eric McCoy and Tano Passanio, guys like that. Just don't even bring them back at this point. I don't see what the point is when the Saints, at most, they're probably going to win maybe 2, 3 more games. Maybe. Like what's even the point of bringing these beat up injured players back for a team that has like pretty much zero chance of making the playoffs? All right, so now let's move on to MVP here. I think I did pretty well last week picking a player that's kind of irrelevant to the team, and Carl and Cam Jordan, because he at least he didn't get hurt in this game, so that was a positive from the previous players that I picked to be my MVP. So going in this game, I think I'm gonna have the same thing because picking them, Cam Jordan didn't get injured, but he also had a big play in the game that the Saints didn't capitalize on at the end of the first half. So I think I'm gonna do that again and just pick a player that maybe doesn't really matter all that much, but I guess they have potential and they're situated uh, for an opportunity to maybe have a breakout game because Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave is hurt. I want to I really want to pick wide receiver Bud Memes, but I don't want to jinx him. I don't want to curse him because he actually there in the first half he looked respectable, decent with his connection with Spencer Rattler. And there's some of me that almost kind of wants to pick Spencer Rattler, but I don't want him to end up literally on a gurney being rolled out of the Superdome after some vicious hit he takes by from a Broncos defender. So I think I'm still going to go with wide receiver, but one that I don't think has quite as much potential, even though it seemed like they were trying to make him a go-to guy or a deep threat for Derek Carr when he was still healthy. So I'm going to go for my MVP. I'm going to go Mason Tipton. So if nothing else, hopefully he just has maybe like one good play in the game, maybe just a catch to convert a first down and doesn't get hurt would be kind of nice. And then on to my hot take. My hot take is probably it just seems like they're running out of players to get hurt. So, I mean, is this possible with their track record this season? I don't know, but that's kind of why they're a hot take. So the Saints aren't going to have any injured players in this game. No Saints players are going to be get injured in this game. Uh, it seems like my hot takes sometimes are so ridiculous they actually hit. A lot of those being offensive line based, but I gotta look for something somewhere, some hope or reverse jinx or something. But no injured. The Saints will have no injured player. You won't hear any tweets about a Saints player headed to the blue tent in this game. And then the pick score. I don't think with Bo Nix and the Broncos offense, I don't think they're not as talented and as Baker Mayfield and two great receivers in Chris Olave and Mike Evans and a running game. I don't think their offensive line uh, play is as good as the Bucs either. So I still think the Saints are going to lose in this game, but I would hope that their defense has some correction of riding the ship where they don't have another 50 burger put on them. So I'm picking the Broncos to win this game, and it's still going to be a two-score game. So I have the Broncos winning 23-13. So the defense will have rightened the ship a little bit in regards to not giving up twice as many points as like they did against the Buccaneers. But still, I see the Saints going on a 5-game losing streak here, and really, I just don't see them coming. There's any way they can come back from 2-5. But with how the season's going, and with how many players are injured, there's really no expectations coming out of this season now. Not like there were after the first 2 weeks where it looked like they're title contenders. It's just over, and I'm already feeling more excited about the off season. 2025 free agency, 2025 a draft. Hopefully, with the way things going, it looks like they may have a top 5, top 3 pick in the draft. So I would be excited for that. And hopefully, all these injuries and your injury at quarterback and just the whole playing on 10 days or 11 days, playing 3 games in 10 to 11 days. Hopefully, that doesn't end up being like kind of an excuse to keep Dennis Allen for a 4th year. So hopefully, he's just booted out of here, and hopefully we can get back to some fun, even though it's probably not going to start until the off season. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?